Peace and hoodoo blessing. I am doing a video on Yacub. According to the Nation of Islam, Yacub was a black scientist who created the white race through selective breeding called grafting. He was said to live 6,000 years ago and to be the equivalent of Jacob in the Bible. Yacub's story originated from Wallace Fard Muhammad, who founded the Nation of Islam. According to the story, Yacub was born in Mecca of the tribe of Shabazz. He is also known as Big Head because he was said to have a large head that was filled with arrogance. He created white people to trick and lie and master over black people. He breeded out the black traits, unalived dark babies, and created brown people. Yacub was 150 when he died. His followers continued his work, and after 600 years, the white race was created. The new white race were exiled from Mecca to Europe and were only allowed to keep their language. They lived in caves and were said to be barbaric, eating unclean things like raw meat. Eventually, Moses brought them out of their caves and taught them to wear clothes as well as attempted to civilize them. After the white race could not be tamed, Moses decided to blow up 300 of the new white race that gave them the most trouble. In retaliation, the white man used trickery to overpower and enslave black people and brought the first slaves to America. It was believed Yacub created red, yellow, and brown races, but the black people were of the people called Moors. White people were of the people called Europeans. Elijah Muhammad believed the white race tried to graft themselves back into the black nation, but they had nothing to go by. Thus, they became guerrillas. He believed the monkey family was from a 2,000-year history of the white race. Yacub and Jacob of the Bible are both said to be father of the tribes of Israel. In the story of Yacub, Jews were also a part of the fake white race. Malcolm X spoke on Yacub, saying Elijah Muhammad told him Jacob was Yacub, and the angel that Jacob wrestled with wasn't God, it was the government. The Yacub story could have come from a real-life event in history where a fight between Christians and Muslims took place to gain control of Spain. A battle took place led by Muslim leader Abu Yusuf Yacub al-Mansur against the Franks, in which 40,000 European prisoners of war were taken to Morocco to work for Yacub. They were eventually set free and allowed to settle elsewhere. Another possible origin of Yacub comes from the doctrine of Yacubites. Wallace Fard Muhammad, the founder of the Nation of Islam, was said to have belonged to Timothy Drew's Moorish Science Temple before founding the nation. He taught that pre-Columbian civilizations were first founded by a West African Moor who landed on the Yucatan Peninsula named Yacub. It was also believed that the big heads created by the Olmecs of Yucatan had Negro features and was argued to be from West Africa. Noble Drew Ali's followers, aka Timothy Drew, preached that the Yacubites were scientific geniuses with huge heads and small bodies. The Olmec heads were said to be representations of them. As we can see, the founder and leaders of Islam were very much influenced by the Moorish Science Temple. Many commentators mention the issue of scientific racism in regards to Yacub. Racist white people have always called black people monkeys and gorillas. The story of Yacub flips these racist comparisons back on the Europeans. The story of Yacub is in the Nation of Islam's doctrine, but is not in the doctrine of mainstream Islam such as Salafi or Sunni Islam. When Malcolm X went to Mecca and learned that the story of Yacub was not in the mainstream doctrine, he realized that depriving anyone of their basic human rights was engaging in devilish acts. This caused tension for him in the Nation of Islam. Malcolm X was willing to work with anyone who was for the right thing, which was to destroy racism as a whole and come together for the greater good. Elijah Muhammad's son Warith Din Muhammad also rejected the Nation of Islam's story of Yacub. However, Louis Farrakhan still holds the belief in the Nation of Islam's story of Yacub, claiming aspects of the story are accurate and that Yacub is not a mythical figure. Farrakhan claims Yacub is a real scientist. The 5%ers, whom I can cover in another video, also believe in the mythical story of Yacub as facts. Taken from an article written by Elijah Muhammad in regards to Yacub. According to the word of Allah to me, Yacub was seen by the 23 scientists of the black nation over 15,000 years ago. They predicted that in the year 8,400, that was in our calendar year before this world of the white race, this man Yacub would be born 20 miles from the present holy city Mecca, Arabia. And that at the time of his birth, the satisfaction and dissatisfaction of the people would be 70% satisfied and 30% dissatisfied. And that when this man is born, he will change civilization, the world, and produce a new race of people who would rule the original black nation for 6,000 years, from the 9,000 year to the 15,000 year. After that time, the original black nation would give birth to one whose wisdom, knowledge, and power would be infinite, one whom the world would recognize as being the greatest and mightiest God since the creation of the universe, and that he would destroy Yacub's world and restore the original nation or ancient nation into power to rule forever. Taken from the Final Call, a Nation of Islam newsletter, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan delivered Part 3 of his monumental lecture series, answering for all time the question, who are the real children of Israel? He spoke eloquently to those gathered at Mosque Maryam about the messenger's teaching on Yacub. When they make mockery of what God has revealed to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they say that Yacub was an evil scientist. Wrong. Yacub was a scientist who saw in the genetic makeup of the black man that he could bring out of us a new people, the opposite of the original. That is not evil. That is high science. Also taken from the Final Call. Over the course of many generations, the population of Patmos began to grow lighter and lighter until, after 600 years of this dedicated grafting process, the people became very pale with blue eyes and blonde hair. From this island-based tribe of white-skinned albinos came an aggressive race of rulers who then spread into every corner of the world, namely the Caucasians, who now represent 9% of the world population. That's 1 in every 11 human beings. In conclusion, those who believe in the Yacub story believe in scientific breeding or grafting being responsible for the white, yellow, and red man. I tell my people all the time to leave these fairy tales alone. We do not need to make up extravagant stories to be great. We are already great. Be for your people first. Learn true history and stand on your square. Thank you for listening. Until next time, peace and hoodoo blessings.